Okay, so we'll transition over to the team that was the surprise a year ago, and that was San Diego. And the San Diego Toreros, we're going to recap last year a bit. So they were 18-15 a year ago. They were 7-9 in the WCC, good for fifth. This is Steve Lavin's first full season at San Diego, and that was a team who everyone had picked last for the WCC standings. That was the coaches. I did that. Like, San Diego looked like the team that we just did not know who the heck they were. There were a ton of freshmen, not a lot from the portal. They had some pieces that came back after the coaching change. Wayne McKinney came back, so there was at least some familiarity with faces and names, but there was nothing that we could be sure about with that squad. But as they kicked off the season. They were 6-4. They were looking okay. Came off back-to-back losses to Stanford, to Utah State. Neither of those games were really all that close. And then they came back home for Arizona State and won. And that was the shock, I think, for everyone outside of Jenny Craig Pavilion that happened. It legitimized what we had seen already, because their schedule was soft, and I was definitely not someone who believed it was real because of who they were doing it against. Once they beat Arizona State, they beat a Power 5 school. It legitimized what they were doing and what growth they had. They finished 10-5 in the non-conference. Their opponents weren't great, but it was building. They looked like they were actually getting better. And as they were going through that, I did kind of look forward a little bit and saw the start of their WCC schedule, and I knew it wasn't going to end well, and it didn't. They were 0-5 right out the gate. They had to play Gonzaga twice, St. Mary's, USF. They did play Pepperdine, but they had the murderer's row right out the gate. And it was like, okay, they're coming back to earth. Maybe this isn't quite that team. But then they won 6 of the next 7, including a win at Santa Clara, which, again, another eye-opener, because that's a good Santa Clara team. That was a good Santa Clara team that they beat. Ended up finishing 7-9 in conference play. Everything was looking like there was a ton of talent on this team. It was starting to emerge, and it was starting to gel. It was getting better. And then the portal happened, as it does in this day and age. They lost Kevin Patton Jr., who was, I thought, one of the better freshmen in the league a year ago. They lost Deuce Turner, who they relied a ton on for his offensive outbursts. Like, I think back to I think it was 37 against St. Mary's that first week of conference play. They lost Wayne McKinney, who was their point guard, who was kind of their leader. They lost PJ Hayes, who was maybe their best three-point shooter. They lost Jimmy Oladokun, who was one of their better interior players. They lost 5 guys who were a key part of their rotation a year ago. And that's a hard thing to kind of try to overcome, especially when you're a program like San Diego. You are trying to pick yourself up off the deck after losing those 5 guys. And they started to add in the offseason, everything else. You look at guys like KJ Bradley coming over from San Diego City College. He was the PCAC MVP, Player of the Year, 17 points per game. They brought in Cody Koule, who's coming over from D2 Southeastern Oklahoma State, 6'5" guard. He a 50-40-90 type guy. He averaged 17 points per game last season, 43% from 3. But there was still it wasn't like the cupboard was bare, at least not completely. And start off with the one name that we all do know, and was Steven Jamerson. And he was someone who was highly effective in that starting lineup for San Diego last year. 6'10" center, 8 points per game, 8.3 rebounds, which was third in the WCC. He was fourth in the WCC in blocks per game. 25 minutes per contest, 60% from the field. This was someone who had 6 double-doubles during a streak that had him with 5 in a row from January 27th to February 10th. This is the one guy who remained that I think you could circle on. It's like, at the very least, they have something that is known, solidified, and that they can rely upon. And having him in the middle for this team is going to, I think, help a lot, because at least you can say, I have my interior defense situated. I have someone inside who's big, who can clean the boards and impact what's going to happen with anyone driving the lane. So I at least have that. Then also some of the guys who we didn't get to see much of because they were banged up last season. David Simon, we didn't get to see him at all a year ago, 6'11" forward. The coaching staff is really high on him. Watching some of the tape from when he was in high school, obviously this is someone who can play above the rim, good finisher, someone who I think is going to really kind of be able to play off of Jamerson well. They're definitely going to be sharing some of the minutes, some of the playing time, but I think both of these guys are going to make significant impacts for the San Diego squad. Santiago Truett, I should say. Sorry, San Diego. Santiago Truett, 6'10" forward, Argentinian. He didn't get to play a whole lot last year either. Like, he missed WCC play. He only played 9 games a year ago. But watching some film of him in the U19 World Cup, can play inside and out. Good patience for a big man. His game reminded me actually a lot of Pau Gasol, and just the way he was able to have that patience, knew where the cuts were. Good passer for a big man as well. He averaged 8.7 points, 6.9 rebounds in that World Cup. And so San Diego is looking like, and then also I want to mention Dragos Lungo, another guy. We saw a lot of him last year. He did play in 28 games, but wasn't relied upon to do too much on the offensive end. But it does seem like he's going to be given more of that responsibility this coming season, one, out of necessity, but also because this is someone who's come in, and I think even last year there was kind of like a little bit of a buzz about him and what he could end up being. And with all the additions, with some kind of like the guys that it seems like they're going to rely upon quite a bit, this is a team that was picked to finish 8th, or at least they were tied in the WCC preseason poll with Portland. And I think San Diego is going to struggle a little bit more this year, I think, than a year ago. Even though I think we're going to see some growth, I think there's a lot of talent on this squad, but I don't think we have enough known talent to really say, hey, this is what's going to happen. I mean, even last year, like Deuce Turner came in as a transfer, and he had done some things prior to his arrival with the Toreros, and he showed everything that I think what the promise was. Like, he was kind of the microwave. Like, you put him in and like it was almost an instant 15 points. That was someone who was one of the better scorers, especially off the bench in the WCC. And I don't know if they have that this year. I don't know if they have enough offense to balance out what I think is actually still going to be a tough, defensive-minded, can clear the boards well team. But I don't see where the offense is coming from necessarily right away. Now, I'll mention someone like a Cody Kool-Aid who could be that guy. We've seen, again, 17 points a game. Maybe it's KJ Bradley who could step into that role and be that guy as well. I think the offense is going to be the struggle early on. Finding that rhythm, finding what they're going to look like is going to be the hardest part definitely of the non-conference for them, even though they actually do kind of ease themselves in, much like they did a year ago, to to see what sort of team they're going to be. Their first 6 games are at home, or excuse me, 7 games are at home. Rider, Boston U, Portland State, Idaho State, Southern Utah, Idaho, Marion. These are teams from conferences that honestly San Diego should actually do fairly well against. And we'll give them time to get through the growing pains, get through these early parts of the season when they're still trying to figure out who they are. Because December is going to be tough for this squad. And it is not going to be easy. Their December schedule, they are at Arizona State, they're at San Diego State, they have Long Beach, they are at Fresno, they have UC San Diego, they're neutral for Grand Canyon. They have kind of a little bit of a murderer's row in December. So it really does feel like there's almost a necessity for them to try to get some things worked out in that first month of the season before they hit this stretch, because short of maybe at Fresno, I don't see an easy game in this bunch. And even though, like, this is going to be tough for San Diego. And going into the WCC play, it's just going to be tougher because Pacific is better. LMU is better. You look, I think Portland's a little bit more cohesive than they were a year ago. Washington State and Oregon State coming in. This is a tougher road for San Diego going into this season. Even more so, it would have been tough losing the 5 guys that they did. And just looking at the way that there's non-conference sets up and then also the way conference sets up, it just feels like this is just going to be a tougher and tougher task for the San Diego squad. And thinking about where they are in that preseason poll, honestly, like 8th might be the best case scenario for the San Diego team, because I could very easily see them slipping down the 10th because Pacific is better, because Portland might have something going, and that slides them down just a couple of spots very quickly. And the only one to me that looks like they're in more dire straits is Pepperdine at the moment. But who knows? I was wrong about this team a year ago, and they made a run. The San Diego team has a bunch of unknowns, but just because they're unknowns doesn't mean that they can't climb out of it. Now, do I think that, let's say everything goes right for this San Diego squad, I don't know if they can break through that 7th spot anyway, because of Oregon State, because of Washington State, because of the way LMU has improved this year. I don't know if they can break through that. Do I think that they can give some teams challenges? Yes. Do I think that they are going to be able to be competitive with a lot of these teams? Yes. I think that's still possible. Do I think they're going to pick up enough wins to break through that group? I don't. At least not right now. It doesn't look like this is a team set up to do that. But that doesn't mean that there's not going to be growth. It doesn't mean that there can't be improvement upon the squad, because we did see that a year ago, that the San Diego team that we thought was going to finish in dead last didn't, and played far better than we thought any of them would.